Welcome to the Centre Half Bench podcast. Bit of a thing to do during ISO, bit of a thing to do during the season, bit of an adventure for us and see where it takes us. So, hope you enjoy and come along for the ride, even though that sounds pretty fucking cringy.
Alright, so the first game we're probably going to look at is this. So this is the first episode. This is the pilot episode.
It's just a bit of a trial, just seeing how everything works and all that. So, start off with the first game of the round, Richmond Dogs.
And the Richmond Tigers won that game by
41 points. In all honesty, this round was a bit of a shit round. Fair few blowouts. As you can see in this game, Bulldogs kicked the first goal of the match and didn't have the lead for the rest of the game, and it was pretty much all Richmond. So,
and then when you look at the other games like Melbourne Port Adelaide, Carlton Hawthorn, Bombers Lions, North Melbourne Adelaide Crows, St Kilda Sydney, West Coast Geelong, Suns and the Giants, Collingwood and Fremantle. We will get into that game later, being two Collingwood fans, obviously very angry with that result.
yeah, we'll talk about that at the end. But most of the games were more than 5 goals deficit. So not a great round of footy, but you're always going to get one or two of those a year. But yeah, so obviously Port Adelaide are currently top of the ladder, flying through the season. They've got games at the Adelaide Oval. They look really set. It'll be interesting to see how their young team holds up in finals and all that. But they bet Melbourne by 8 goals, and they looked pretty comfortable. Melbourne didn't pose a threat, so they had that easy. The next game was a bit interesting, wasn't it, Sash?
Yeah, for sure. With the Carlton versus Hawthorn game, it was definitely a confusing one. Obviously, with Hawthorn not performing very well and Carlton blowing a 5-goal lead to start off with the highest disposal getter of that whole game being 28, which is quite high. But
High for this season with shortened quarters.
Paddy Cripps had an absolute game with 27 touches, 19 contested possessions and only 8 uncontested. From a star player in the competition, it's just absolutely elite, but it just shows how
Not even he can win it.
it's just crazy. And then you got players like Tom Mitchell with 18 uncontested possessions going in, giving a quick handball out or getting that over the head kick, which kind of just builds up for him.
Cheap disposals, but it gets the ball moving for them and gives them momentum.
Well, he's obviously won a Brownlow for
Yeah.
although missing out completely on last season, had an absolute blinder the year before winning the Brownlow, which obviously
Narrowly pipped our boy Steel side bottom.
unlucky, but
yeah, so like you said, Carlton went on and kicked the first 5 goals won for the game. If they had kicked another goal or two, they would have won that game. The momentum was heavily their way, but then the Hawks managed to pick one back through Will Day's first goal from his career, from 45, nearly mucked it up, but got it going, and then they kicked the last 2 of that quarter to bring it back to a 3-goal won, 19-point deficit. And then from there, Carlton kicked the first one, and then after that, Hawks went on to kick 5 in a row, and Carlton never looked likely pretty much again for the rest of the game. So Blues fans missing out on that one. They got a 62-point turnaround, the Hawks did. And yeah, a day to remember for the Blues fans and players.
yeah, for sure. Well, starting off in their first quarter, they kicked 5 goals, 1, and then for the rest of the game, only 4 goals, 3, 7 scoring chances, compared to Hawthorn's other chances in 12 goals and 5 points. So you can just easily tell that Hawthorn capitalised on their opportunities, absolutely dominating the Blues and just showing them why Alistair Clarkson is still an absolute masterclass of a coach.
Even if he makes dodgy comments about the umpires, but that's for another time.
Yeah.
But on that note, James Worpel, very, very great last year, dropped off for the first part of this year. Finally got back to that form we knew. 18 disposals, 7 kicks, 11 handballs, 3 marks, 4 tackles. Just a good all-round performance from him. Good to see him getting rolling.
Yeah. The 20 touches was massive for them as well, especially being third in the game, tied, not tied, sorry, third in total for the game, and just showing that a young player in the competition can come and do some effort on a very old, aging Hawthorn outfit, which
Yeah.
obviously is a team that is definitely on the decline. I think they will going into a rebuild, but the question is, does Alistair Clarkson want to stay for a rebuild?
Yeah, on that note, speaking of the aging, you go down to the other end of the performance, and you've got Ben Stratton, the captain, 6 disposals. For me, I'm sure he's a great bloke and a great leader around the club, but on field, I don't see what he brings to the team.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, your captain. You shouldn't be dropping him, but definitely
He should be dropped, but captaincy is saving him.
100%. And with 8 touches, it's not looking pretty.
Yeah,
Your younger players stepping up
and carrying him, basically.
and basically showing him that, yes, you might be the captain, but that doesn't matter because we're going to prove to you why you shouldn't be and step up. But I reckon definitely the most boring game of the whole week was definitely that Brisbane versus Essendon game.
10 goals, win to the Lions. 3 goals for Essendon in the game. Saying that, though, they did have their chances. 3 goals, 10. You convert a bit better, and you're a lot better than 10 goals down.
Yeah, because obviously 63-point win, you don't want that. Obviously the Pies having that absolute massacre against
Yeah, it's almost as bad as that, and that was pretty shocking.
that was terrible.
Considering the great start Essendon has had to the season as well, and then you see the way they played against Collingwood, and then the way they played against Lions, and they're chalk and cheese, and they've got to get that consistency right come September.
Yeah, definitely. And I think obviously missing Dylan Shield is a massive out, or he may possibly have been back this week.
He did come back first game.
Yeah, 17 touches. But from a player that was in Brownlow contention that this season to obviously miss those 2 weeks on that massive bump against North Melbourne, probably costing them a couple games,
Yeah, and costing him possibly a Brownlow.
possibly. I think Lachie Neale will win the Brownlow this year.
Yeah, no one really is posing a threat.
No one really is. You could say Petrarca.
He's too inconsistent at the moment, a bit like Melbourne.
The thing is, he may be inconsistent, but if he's playing well, Melbourne are playing well. But there are those games where he is playing well and Melbourne still can't find a way to do anything.
In a team like Melbourne, who's going to take votes off him, realistically? Maybe Gawn, maybe Viney, maybe Brayshaw. Apart from that, no one really.
Max Gawn, Angus Brayshaw, like you said, probably his 2 main threats to the Brownlow vote. But if you're looking at that Melbourne team, you're thinking Petrarca having an absolute breakout year in what has been a colossal year for AFL and what it's been. And then they go and lose by 51 points last week, in round 9 to Port Adelaide, who are actually top of the competition, best team in the league currently, like Jai said before. But
Yeah.
to score 2 points in a first quarter to Port Adelaide's 3 goals too, it's just a shame because from a team,
They made a prelim 2 years ago. Think about that. Second last year, and disappointing so far this.
obviously getting absolutely pumped by what's his face, West Coast.
Yeah, in that prelim, that wasn't.
And then West Coast, obviously, 2018, Dom Sheed from the boundary line breaks our hearts, 100%.
Talking about 2020, mate. 2020 podcast. Anyway, on that note, one of the best stories of the week, Majak Daw. Now, what a legend. Obviously, we all know what happened with him, and the incident, and how he was told he might never walk again, how he damaged his hip, and how the whole North Melbourne club got around him and really helped him through that whole ordeal.
It wasn't even North Melbourne, it was the whole...
The AFL community as a whole. And to see him come back, he didn't play amazing, but he kicked that goal, got it off his back. Everyone got around him.
And you obviously look at his son, Hendrix, as well, obviously being able to experience his dad
Yeah, he won't remember it, but he'll see videos of it.
It'll definitely be on social media.
For humanity as a whole, I'm pretty sure Dermy summed it up really well in Fox Footy's coverage. It's a story of humanity and triumph, as like he was millimeters away from not being here and being a memory and being one of the people that people look back on and go, shame of what happened to him. But for him to turn his life around, regain it, go back to where he was, and just it's a triumph story for humanity, not just AFL. How he reclaimed his life.
Obviously, bit sad that he did try to commit suicide, but he
Yeah,
was very, very lucky to come out alive. And
just be a role model for those and show that you can beat it. You can come out better.
but another game that I think we should look at is that St Kilda Sydney game. Not the best game, but
Nah,
do St
but
Kilda look
think
like a
about it.
finals team when you watch them
Yeah,
play?
they do look good. Apart from that game where they had a couple of blowouts, like they lost to Freo and they got smashed by us, the Pies. I think they lost another one or two that they should have won. But apart from that, they look very good. And to put it into perspective, it was 40 to 51. They were up by 11 at three-quarter time. And then from there, they piled on the goals. They outscored Sydney by 42 in the last, 7 goals in the last, to end up winning by 53. Now, if that doesn't show perseverance and a team that wants to win and fight it out to the end, which is what you need come September, I think the Saints are looking good this year. They don't have that finals experience, but I think it'll be like a Brisbane Lions last year. They get there, do well. Might not perform the best in finals, but it's an experience for them and their young players. It gives them a launching platform for the next couple of seasons.
I think someone that or the AFL has to take on notice this year is Jack Steele. Absolute machine of a
Yeah,
player.
all Australian form at the moment.
All Australian, Brownlow contention, you could argue. He'll definitely pick up some votes, especially being on a winning St Kilda team. Arguably their best player this season.
Most improved, for sure.
One of the most improved players in the competition, for sure. It's just great to see that a team that was absolutely in the, like, down in the dirt, it's like a very mediocre team.
They won the first 5 games of last year and they looked up and about and then they dropped off. But so far this year, they've been able to hold that form up and keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Brett Ratton, I think that's his name. He's been instrumental in the way they've been playing this year, and it just showed, especially at the back end of last year when they did hire him as a coach. I remember listening to an SEN podcast saying that if he wants to come in, he should say his motives for the club and what to bring in, and I think he's done exactly that. And
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And their pickups have helped them a lot this year. I think they've gotten Paddy Ryder, Brad Hill, Zach Jones, Howard. Their pickups, they recruited very well, and I think that's put them in a good spot with some mature players, some young players, and they're growing into a team that is going to dominate the next 5 years.
Dan Butler is a freak this year.
To not get a game at Richmond to then go on and be the best player at St Kilda, she shows how he he was a role player at Richmond, and now they've let him off the leash, and now he's doing well.
It just shows that once a young player in the competition can have a go, they can explode out onto the scene and just absolutely torture the competition, basically. Like, I know I've got him in
Yeah,
my super coach team this year. He's been racking up points for me.
yeah, he's a gun.
There's a couple games he hasn't done so well, but in those games he's not doing well. He's still scoring 1 or 2 goals and just putting on that extra bit of help to that St Kilda Football Club on that team that's slowly starting to build into a finals contender.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, that wasn't much of a game, but you know what was a game? This West Coast Geelong game. Now that looks like finals football.
That was especially, although Geelong did lose, you got to give them props for going over to WA, playing at Optus, and
They were leading in the fourth.
yeah, I know, almost coming out on top. At the start of the game, it was Geelong kicking 4 goals straight, West Coast kicking 3 goals straight, and then Geelong exploded for 3 goals, while West Coast only kicked 1 goal too.
But Josh Kennedy, in the second half, kicked 4 goals. Exactly what he did against Collingwood the week before. He's kicked 4 goals in 2 halves back to back. Now, if he isn't in Coleman form, I don't know who is.
I think he's actually leading the Coleman currently.
He is. He's kicked 11 in the last 2 weeks.
He's kicked half his goals basically. It just shows that how good he is as a player and at the age he is, especially to sit next to Jack Darling. Obviously, they've played together their whole careers, but that could have gone any way possible. One of them could have said, I don't want to play with the other, and they could have gone off.
And you add Oscar Allen into that mix, and they've got a very tall forward, but they're all mobile, and they all work well together.
Although Jack Darling can't take a mark to save his life.
Yeah, dropping marks in the goal square, but yeah.
Yeah, he's done that a couple times, especially against the Pies.
And you mentioned that 2018 grand final. We don't like to talk about it, but that hero in that game, Dom Sheed, he's finally finding form. Like, he got dropped in the 2018 season, was lucky to play in the grand final, and now he's finally getting back into that form. Kicked 2 goals, 24 touches, 81 AFL fantasy. He's getting into his strides, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially him being, I think it was a top 12 draft pick, and just coming in with obviously being top 12 draft pick, he there's a lot of pressure on him to perform, and I think the last 2 years he started to gather it together.
He obviously performed. He had at the start of his career he performed once, and that was in the grand final. And now he's actually getting consistent.
He does not mind a game against the Pies.
No, he doesn't.
He always tends to kill us, but hey, we will hopefully beat them soon and
Not lose by 11 goals.
not lose by 11 goals, because that was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. Next game, Giants Suns.
Giants Suns. Look, definitely 2 teams of the future.
Yeah. The 2 expansion teams.
But do you look at Leon Cameron and think a good coach? Because I definitely don't. I don't rate him as a coach.
Nah. He's nothing special, but he's got that talent from all the AFL drafts. And speaking of talent, the Gold Coast Suns definitely have that. They've just got to build.
I think you look at their list and the next decade, basically. So this 2020 decade, like a lot of them start to mature. Isaac Rankin, Matt Rowell, Noah Anderson. Now that Matt Rowell is out, looking like the rising star. I think it's Ben King that plays for him, or Max.
Yeah. Max King, I think.
Yeah, one of the King twins.
Ben King, yeah.
Look, not the most consistent player on earth, but if he can get going, I think definitely in his career can win a Coleman. It just depends how they do it with the way he's playing and the way they do it. You could tell when Matt Rowell is playing.
Yeah, Matt Rowell lifts that group.
And another player that's starting to get their act together is Stephen Cornelio.
Yeah, for the Giants.
Obviously, a very dry start to the season.
The major point in that game was Toby Green's injury. Now, they're saying he's out for up to 4 weeks. For a gun like him that has single-handedly won them a game against Collingwood and a game against Richmond, that's a big blow for the Giants.
Definitely. I think he is a match winner, whether you like him or not. Absolute dog of a player. Knows how to get goals, just all of that. And I think, speaking of GWS, I think Zach Williams was a massive in for him, racking up 26 touches, 20 uncontested possessions. That man was not interfered at all. He was just left there to run and go. I think he definitely could play on the wing, but you'd prefer him at that halfback just leading around. And Timmy Taranto, an absolute bull.
Good to see him getting a game because he missed out on those games because of that shoulder injury. But
the game we don't want to talk about, but I think we will.
We need to.
We have to. I think we have to address something. It's that
shitty
Pies
first
Freo
quarter.
game.
Collingwood, Freo, our old defensive coach Justin Longmuir. He's now the Freo head coach. He knows how our defense and our offense works, as like relying off our defense. So in that first quarter, you could tell he was just flooding.
He knew exactly how Buckley was going
Yeah.
to plan.
He knew how to outplay us. Like we kicked, there was 0-0 to 1 goal to 8. So we were up by 8. First quarter's our strong point. We usually kick 2 or 3 goals. However, we only kicked 1. That is where they won the game. They nullified our impact in the game in the first quarter. And basically from there, even though we were leading, they looked in control of the game.
They definitely knew that if they can stop our first quarter,
They can go a long way to winning the game.
we absolutely dominate in the first quarter. Second and third, for some reason, we go quiet, and then fourth quarter.
On that note of going quiet, West Coast we leaked 13 goals in a row against West Coast last week. We leaked 3 goals against Freo. In a game where we only kicked 7 goals and leaking 3 goals in the second quarter, where they went and took the lead by 11, leaking those goals was so damaging for us.
And especially after the good first quarter we had against the Eagles, just looking like, all right, maybe we can compete today. We're not here to talk about that
Eagles game. We're onto the other shit game, which is the Freo one. And what I found from that game is if we don't start well, we're shit. Like I think 45% of our scoring comes in our first quarters. If you can nullify that, you go a long way to beating us.
I think that, look, although for a shit game, definitely massive upside. Treloar, Noble played well off that halfback.
Side bottom.
Bruzzy again looking like an all-Australian type player.
And more. Yeah.
Darcy Moore, although you do have people saying he doesn't play on anyone, he just kind of floats around and takes marks.
He plays his role well though. He helps us.
He may do that, but when he goes on a player, he shuts them down. Like, look at that Nat 5 contest that he had. It was on the wing forward flank area, and it just shows that if he can do that against a 2-time Brownlow medalist, a grand final player, he can definitely compete with some of the league's best. One-on-one, yeah. It just shows that he's more than just a pack defender. I think that he's starting to show that he can play one-on-one, and definitely. But the real question is, DeGoey, Darcy Moore going into free agency this year, who do you pay?
I'd take Moore.
I think we pay Darcy Moore.
Darcy Moore.
Yes, DeGoey is a match winner. He's come out on the record to say that he wants to stay at the club.
So we do everything we do to keep Moore.
You do everything you do to keep those 2 players. I think there's 4 players you build around at Collingwood.
Maynard, Moore.
It's Moore, Grundy, because obviously that 7-year contract is going to be a pie for life. Taylor Adams, future captain.
Future skip.
DeGoey and Maynard.
Yeah. On that note of future captain though, Adams, not the best start to his captaining career. Obviously captained the 2 West Coast games against the 2 West Coast teams and have gotten beaten in both.
Yeah, for sure. I think, but when you look at that West Coast game, it was kind of, Pendles literally went out that last second. So he couldn't really done anything. But I think for now, when Pendles is away, you give Sidebottom that leadership or that captaincy.
I think it was just because it was Sidebottom's first game, they held back on it.
Sidebottom's first game back, but the thing is, you look at that and then just go, all right, if Pendles has been injured throughout the career of Steele Sidebottom, it's still Sidebottom taking the reins as captain for that game. And it just shows that although he may not be the most vocal guy, the things he does.
Yeah, like the goal he kicked in the third quarter to bring us back into it. Yeah.
Leads by action, not really words. But if you look at Treloar's very much like a Nathan Buckley captain, very vocal. Tony Shaw type captain.
Whereas Steele just does his job and lifts the team with what he does on the field. Like where everyone looked slow, he would burst into packs, get it and give a good quick handball out. Like that's the difference we missed against West Coast.
Oh, and I think definitely the thing we missed against West Coast was the younger boys being able to give it off to Pendlebury, knowing that he's going to hit the target 99.9% of the time out of 100. and just slow the game down completely. I think another player we missed was Callum Brown.
Yeah, he doesn't have a big impact on the game, but the small things he does helps lift the forward. And in a forward line that didn't look dangerous and looked like there was no pressure, he at least somewhat brings that pressure.
Yeah, for sure. I think it just gives that forward line intensity. Another player coming back into the lineup was the Bear, Braden Sire.
Braden Sire, gotta love him. He obviously kicked the first goal of the game. What did he have? He had
1 goal, 13 touches, 8 uncontested and 5 contested.
not the biggest comeback, but all the Pies fans love to see it. Solid.
The main thing is that he's back in the lineup. He's back in there over Wills. He's back to hopefully playing his best type of footy. Obviously doing very well in the scratch matches against the teams we played against. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah.
Haven't really looked into the scratch matches, just kind of looked at the games. But speaking of scratch matches, Flint Appleby has been knocking on the door.
Obviously, Will Kelly got picked over him for that Hawthorn game. But now that he's out, I think Appleby looks like our next option.
Yeah, and I think especially going into
Ahead of Reed as well, because Reed's getting old and his body is deteriorating.
Reed has had hamstring issues the last 3-4 years.
Yeah. And speaking of the game, we between the West Coast game and the Freo game, we couldn't do much right. Obviously, West Coast kicked 18-3 and we're kicking them out of their ass from the boundary. And Freo kicked 10 goals 1 to our 7-7. We had more scoring shots, more inside 50s, yet we were inaccurate on our conversion and obviously our goal kicking. Now, if that's an issue from our point of view, our accuracy, but when you think about it, we've had 28 goals for kicked on us in 2 weeks. Now, I saw a stat during the week. That's the highest ever, like the most accurate score kicked on a team over 2 weeks in the history of the AFL. It bet a Hawthorn team that had 24-8 kicks against them. But I guess when your opponent's kicking that straight, there's not much you can do.
No, there's definitely not. And especially from us being the apparent best defensive team in the league by stats, we started off very, very hot. But the thing is, it's just we don't know how to play on the offensive end. Defensively,
Yeah.
I trust us, I back us, but besides from that West Coast game. But the thing is, if we go and look at how we've been playing this season, there's not a lot of high-scoring games. Like, let's go back
No.
to round 1, playing the Doggies, 86 points, which is all right, low scoring. And then obviously after the restart, 36-36 draw to Richmond. Obviously not the highest scoring. And then we scored
No.
81 against St Kilda, not bad for short quarters. But then,
We haven't scored since.
and actually, if we go to that Giants game, how many did we shoot? How many did we go? 9 goals, 10. 2 of those points converted to goals. That's a win for us.
Inaccuracy again. That seems like it's the theme of our season so far.
It's good that the Collingwood social media team's showing the Pies can have shots from the car park, but like we want set shots. We want goals directly in front or drop punts, not check side shots from.
On that note of Collingwood social media, by the way. So after the game, obviously Collingwood fans get very angry, me and you included. They turned off the commenting on their Instagram post, and then the social media director of the club later said that they turned it off because the players' mental health is more important than our opinion. That's fair enough. And especially in a time where they're in hubs and away from their family.
Yeah, obviously they're back with their families now in the Queensland hubs. But he has a massive point that there is obviously players' mental health. If we look at a Collingwood player's mental health,
Beams, prime example.
I don't want to get into him. He frustrates me, but we love him. But I just think that he made the right call to say turn off the comments because obviously that West Coast game.
That infuriated a lot of people. And speaking of the hubs, between the West Coast game and the Freo game, compared to the game against Geelong, another Victorian team that's in a hub, We bet Geelong, but then it gets West Coast and Freo, two teams that are at home with their families. They're comfortable. I think that's a major difference between our performances, between the hub teams versus the home teams.
Definitely, and I think having the players' families back there is going to help them, knowing that although they're not going to be going home, I think it's just going back and they can see that their wives, their partners, their kids, all that stuff. Because although Treloar, absolutely elite player, he's very much a family man. All the younger boys that don't really have families doesn't really matter to them. Like, obviously, they're missing their mums, missing their brothers and sisters if they have any. But it's just more of the older boys at the club. And I think, but with the way the Pies have been playing as well lately, it's a bit upsetting because we should have gone, as a Pies fan, we go into the hub looking 2-1, 3-0 at best, which is the best you could get. But I went in expecting minimum 2-1. Collingwood beating Geelong and Collingwood beating Fremantle. So our final home game before we went to interstate was that Essendon game. Collingwood, Essendon, 15-point loss, and then we go interstate to Sydney, and we beat Hawthorn. Tremendous result. Keep leaving Alistair Clark into his lowest score. We go over to WA. It starts off really well, and then
realistically, we should have come out of that at least 2-1.
2-1, that's what I was saying. 100% 2-1 at the bare minimum, Jai. Like, it shouldn't be 1-2. Not only has this taken an effect on us on the ladder, it's taken effect in our percentage, which is just massive. Because before the West Coast game, we were at 142%. We're now at 111.7.
It's a massive drop. On that note, though, look forward to the next 3 weeks against 3 of the bottom teams, even though Freo was 17th. Looking to bounce back over that, get that rolling. A big round of footy coming up, and looking forward to the second half of the season.
Yeah, for sure. And also, on a last note, Collingwood have not allowed the most points in the league. So we've allowed the least amount of points in the league, 470. But the thing is, we've only scored 525 points.
That offense of ours is lacking.
The defense is fine. It's the offense.
Offense, yeah.
Because 470 points is massive, and then Adelaide, 729 points they've allowed. But when you look at that, 525 points.
There's a problem there.
So yeah, Sydney's second last on the ladder and scored 494. That's 31 point differential, sorry. That's just appalling. I don't think that should be happening.
It'll be interesting to see how that defense of ours holds up against Sydney this week, obviously on Thursday. Looking forward to that game, and yeah.
Yeah. Alright, I think we're gonna wrap it up now, Jai.
And that's all for this week. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you did, like, subscribe, follow, whatever platform you're on. Make sure to go check out our Instagram, centrehalf.bench. There's a link in our bio to all our socials. Go follow them up, go like them, really get behind it, and we bring some weekly content and hopefully some special guests for you. Until then, catch you next time.